St. Paul's Cathedral, and then the orchard at Soup Kitchen. And then I started in 1977 on 10 to 2. You know, we started it, and then all the volunteers got crazy, so we just left. And then a nun came in and brought some sanity to it, some love to it. Sister Ligori, and she's very crippled, and a really good friend of my family. So, no, I started in 1977, left in 1977, and started a home for the homeless in Manchester on the north side of Pittsburgh.
A Hindu, an atheist, a Jain, a Buddhist and a Baptist and a Jew. And he knows he shouldn't kill, and he knows he always will.
What's the occasion here today?
My friend,
well, we've gathered here to play for peace, and the Gulf region, peace and individual hearts.
He's fighting for the USA. He's fighting for the Russians, and he's fighting for Japan.
Open your minds! Close the doors! And that's the end!
And he's fighting for democracy. He's fighting for the Reds.
It's a great day.
Happy New Year.
It's always a great day when we confront power.
He's the one who must decide who's to live and who's to die.
Right before the war started in 03, this is where we rallied, and people stayed here until they got arrested.
What are we under arrest for here today? No cameras allowed. This is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the United States of America.
If you would go on campus at CMU and say, do you realize that you're the 6th largest military contractor for software engineering? This is the biggest military influence in the world, especially in the area of robotics. The autonomous flying vehicle, the drones, the killer robots that they make for the military. This is the anti-cathedral, and you can see the reflection of the church. When this building didn't exist, we were protesting down at Rockwell, and Rockwell was making nuclear triggers. Rockwell was so sick of our civil disobedience and our protests that they moved to sunny California. So that's where we protested from after the Vietnam War. So there was the Vietnam War, and then when we got our thoughts and minds back together, we started protesting the making of 5 nuclear weapons a day during the Cold War. And I was arrested over and over and over again, and in and out of prison for 2.5 years. We went from Rockwell to Pantex, our nation's only nuclear bomb factory during the Cold War. And we got arrested there in 81, 83, 84. And then in 94 went to Los Alamos, which is where the nuclear bomb was born. And I was arrested there and did several months.
God bless.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks for being here. We all appreciate what you're doing.
All right.
What happened was I felt like it was time to meet the people that I've been fighting with so long. And so the first anniversary of the war that started in 02, 03, we went to Baghdad and spent 10 days there. Took a taxi going 200 miles an hour, an armed taxi across the desert, and then we're in Baghdad for 10 days for the first anniversary of the war, where the Iraqi people planned to show the world that we're protesting the Americans being here. They are not our liberators. We had no flak jackets, we had no bulletproof vests, and so people knew that we were against the war, and of course they thought we were crazy. They were blowing up hotels left and right to try to prevent people from protesting. It worked. Only 3,000 people showed up, and it wasn't covered by the international media.
Vince, Irene, from Blast Furnace Radio. What brought you to Iraq?
Well, I just got really tired of, what it's like being an activist. You spend most of your time trying to keep alive and financially and emotionally, and so I decided that I would meet the people. This was literally on the shoestring, and after a year worth of fundraising, we ended up in Baghdad for the first anniversary, March 20th, of the beginning of the war. We're not at war with Pakistan, and we have drones going in there on a daily basis, and Obama was very clear about the fact that he was going to do that, and so now the people have asked me to start things up again here because the software to work the drones were invented here. CMU has very much been involved not only in the making of the software, but lobbying for that.
The Pittsburgh organizing group which is targeting CMU's robotics facility because of CMU's ties to the military through Defense Department contracts, link themselves together here using PVC conduit and bike chains, making it difficult for police to move those who were obstructing a portion of the street nearby. Some others.
Obama talks about the fact that he has to be presidential. His followers talk about being presidential. Well, there's nothing presidential in developing this type of technology to kill Al-Qaeda in Pakistan. The Pakistan government has said that, you tell us where Al-Qaeda is and we'll take care of them. We don't need you to come in here and do this.
So if you move off the steps, we'd appreciate it.
What if I was waiting for the bus?
No ifs, just off the steps.
Okay. That's all. Okay, here we go. Here's my first step. I can't step as well as I used to. Here's number 2. Now, is this considered a step?
Yeah, it's different than the sidewalk.
Okay.
Thanks, Vince. No, if you stay there, we'll all be good.
Okay, what if I... okay. Getting on the steps, getting off the steps, and the phenomenal amount of people that have been killed in the last few wars. I mean, it's what we couldn't do to them with bombs, we did to them by isolating them from the world with sanctions. It would take a Vietnamese on the factory line 2 months to be able to, wages to be able to afford the shoes they make. But that's okay, because we like our nice cushy shoes. What I'm saying is that we really know how to whip people into submission and to supplying us with cheap goods and labor. I've committed myself to a life of voluntary poverty, of active generosity, and I think that over the years, as our society goes to hell, they see that what I was saying was right. We have like 17 of these going on in the city where people can walk in and take vegetables, even if they haven't worked in the garden. We take no government money, and $5 and $10 donations, and we have dances and fundraisers and baked pies for Thanksgiving, and it ended up on Fox News. And here's an example of someone who did something for the poor without government funding.
Well, in 1978, I was a member of the Sisters Council, and I was called to a meeting about a hunger study that was done by the Hunger Action Coalition in Oakland at the Church of Reconciliation. And this hunger study did a study of 9 neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. The Soho district was one of the neighborhoods that they studied. And they found out that there were a lot of people who were hungry, and hungry to the point of pain each month. So I decided that I would like to do something about that.
It's not just used by the soup kitchen. a family that just went by, if they want to pick some green tomatoes and fry them, they can do that. I did some for my daughters, and they almost went crazy. They love them. What we have done here this morning doesn't take a business model. You don't need a board, corporate funding. You need just an old bossy Italian man. It's not my project.
Vincent was very instrumental in keeping the soup kitchen idea alive. He gave us $1,500 to pay the rent on the storefront for 3 months. From then on, we begged. We went to all the unions in Pittsburgh, went to supply houses, and the carpenters union, the plumbers union, the tile setters union, all came in here and built the kitchen into this empty room. By November 1979, we were open. And the first day that we were open, we served 15 people. And we had 8 gallons of soup. We had a lot of soup. And I always kid that at our 20th anniversary, which is in 1999, we finished off that soup. By the end of the year, we were serving about 100 people a day. Now, we had some principles, and the principles were 3. We wanted to serve everybody with dignity and respect who came in here without any question. We wanted to form a community between those that come to serve and those that are served. And we wanted to serve as a conduit between those that have things that they no longer need and that people have need for these articles. So those 3 purposes are true today.
I've been involved with Vincent since about 1977, 1978, and I've lived in 2 of his houses with him, Duncan and Porter houses. Did all kinds of renovations and brought in all kinds of homeless people. The whole notion with a Catholic worker house or with Vince's house is that it's not a program for homeless people, it's a home. And it's our home that becomes also the home of folks who are on the streets. We both got involved in this thing that we called Christian Peacemakers. So this was at the height of the Cold War. A mile away stood the U.S. Steel Building, which is the tallest building in Pittsburgh. At that time, the corporate headquarters of Rockwell International, the 3rd largest military contractor in the United States. It had designed some of the most advanced weaponry used in the Vietnam War. And it was a major designer and builder of nuclear weapons. So you could not help but be struck by the contrast. This one spot where millions and millions of dollars are passing through, and a mile away, a city that looked like it had just been bombed. So we formed a group called Christian Peacemakers, fully committed to nonviolence, and did all sorts of nonviolent actions on the steps of Rockwell International in downtown Pittsburgh. But part of our message was that these 2 things are linked. All of the preparations going into war making and all of the issues surrounding homelessness and poverty right next door. You know, I came to see firsthand and directly how a whole bunch of people lived and how a whole bunch of people were thought of by others. And I came to see directly what it's like to risk something on behalf of peace. I am really persuaded by Jesus' statements about care for the poor and about peace. I've been on a lifelong journey since that point, in many ways discerning especially what the Bible has to say about war and peace, because I feel it's one of the most misunderstood aspects of the biblical message. Very few people seem to know, for instance, that God outlawed the use of the most advanced weapon of the day, the horse and chariot. And these weapons gave a country a huge military advantage and were used by the thousands against the Israelites, but God prohibited them from using it. There's a place in the book of Micah, for instance, that says Israel's embrace of the horse and chariot was, quote, the beginning of sin for the daughter of Zion. We tend to read the Old Testament as if God is a God of war and this harsh, punitive God. And that's a fundamental misreading in my experience. So this is Sheffield Street, where we had our Duncan and Porter Catholic Worker Home for the Homeless. The street's changed a lot since the early 1980s when I was here. Most of these houses and buildings were burnt out shells. Many of them had no roofs or roofs were missing. It was a very historic part of Pittsburgh that really had been abandoned by the whole move out to the suburbs. And so when that happened, then lots of poor folks moved in. One neighbor, and then at wintertime he invited us in for coffee, and he heated his place with a steel pail in which coal was burning. And ventilation was not an issue because the roof was open. Now, as you can see, it's been built up in a big way. Starting in the mid-1980s, early to mid-1980s, gentrification happened.
I've lived in this neighborhood since 1976, before the preppies and yuppies moved in, and the neighborhood was filled with activists, and the protest bus, you didn't know what the protest was, you jumped on the school bus.
I weighed the criticisms that I would get. I thought about even the fact that some Negroes wouldn't understand, and some respectable Negro leaders who are more concerned about being invited to the White House than invited to the cause of justice would be against me.
The day after Dr. King was assassinated, the Hill District in Manchester burnt to the ground. Somebody once said during this time, you know, when they strike at us, we end up hurting each other. People were so out of their minds that the federal troops even jumped on the roof of the mall out in the suburbs because they thought the looting was going to extend out there. And the reason why I should not have been nervous is because I'm so photogenic. Let's go see this house. It's been empty for 30 years. We're hoping to reclaim it for the homeless. The city gave them land and people work on it, volunteer, all volunteer. No one's being paid to turn this blighted, vacant lot into a beautiful place for people to rest. So we're just hoping this house will be a place for homeless plants and a safe house for people that have been discarded in Pittsburgh. We're going to pick up Chin Chin.
Yeah.
And then we're going out to a gentleman's farm in Canonsburg of my mentor from the 60s. It's a gentleman's farm. That means it doesn't do anything. It has horses. Oh, where's the apple? You're coming with an apple, I know. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of creativity, a lot of work. We lost a lot, you know, I lost a beautiful wife, and it was just too much too fast. We were desperate, and rightfully so. In '94, I spoke across the country, and my last stop was Los Alamos, the birthplace of the nuclear bomb, knelt down to pray for peace. And once again, out came the M16s, did 4 months in jail. Obama just gave billions of dollars to rehab our nuclear arsenal. These weapons are able to kill, destroy cities in the world over several times. So it just doesn't seem like they go away, but hopefully either will we. In the 60s, we all wanted a radio station, and I found out that there was some software on the internet that a 233 megahertz computer could run the radio station. And one thing led to another, and they called us radio journalists, and went all over the country, Canada, helped people out through the internet to protest globalization. Then 9/11 happened, and that was the end of the anti-globalization movement. I've been to 2 Republican National Conventions, one in 2000, one in 2012. Police were very violent, and some of the protesters were provocateurs, but I think that it needed to happen. I think there's a lot of work to do in Pittsburgh, but every now and then you have to take it national. Here in Pittsburgh, we have shifted from a physical site where we're camping and occupying to trying to regroup and reorganize and start the general assemblies again. The Occupy people have turned their efforts and their organizational ability to fighting for transit in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it has gotten a lot of results, working with the unions as well as the citizenry and the bus riders. The governor caved in at the 11th hour and reestablished a lot of services. Those ultra-right-wing people have to know a city is not a city without a transit system. Sometimes you need to retreat to advance, as the saying goes.
My name is Martin Sheen. I am here to present an open letter of appeal to Sheriff Eugene Kuhn. Dear Sheriff Kuhn, in the interest of justice and compassion, I respectfully urge the dismissal of assault charges against my friend and colleague, Vincent Irini, who awaits trial on January 30th. With all due respect, sir, the very thought of Vincent Irini engaged in an assault on anyone for any reason is an absurd contradiction. In a lifelong struggle for peace and justice through nonviolent activism and voluntary poverty, Mr. Irini has earned the love and respect of millions of his fellow Americans, including myself, who are inspired and nourished by his courageous example.
Okay, God bless.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks for being here. We all appreciate what you're doing.
All right.